It's time for a battle between two Tomases. One is a licensed product, the other a cheap imposter. I'll look at the amazing similarities between the two, exposing every angle I can find. Both will compete in a number of dangerous challenges, which will expose alarming facts. Only one will survive the drop test. Who will it be? Both of these items cost the same price. One is a single licensed Thomas tank engine, the other a complete Thomas train set. It's a clever clone, a cheap imitation. Notably, the clone has unusual box markings. It is devoid of any indication of the manufacturing company or license agreements. This has to be one of the best clone Thomas toys I have come across. In direct comparison with the licensed products, it's very difficult to see any major differences. To keep track of who's on screen, I've marked the faker Thomas with a copy tag. Before a fight can begin, there's always a weigh-in. The real Thomas is 139 grams or 4.9 ounces. The faker, 99 grams or 3.5 ounces. The real track, 42 grams or 1.5 ounces. The fake track, 36 grams or 1.3 ounces. Interestingly here, the real Thomas toys weigh more. The face differences are huge. Which one do you prefer, the real or the faker? Overall dimensions between the two are identical. Now let's have a closer look. The real Thomas has a name and license info. The faker has a lone sticker. The drive wheels look identical, apart from the colour of the rubber. The coupling on the real Thomas looks more robust. I prefer the colour on the faker Thomas. Maybe you'll have a better idea of what the true colour of Thomas should be. Line details on the real Thomas look better. Parts of the faker seem shinier. The faker also has extra details at the rear. Any carriages are almost identical. Again, the faker has more line details applied. The real Annie seems to have a more robust feel. The trees are the same except for the colour. The track is identical except for the brand name missing on the fake track. It's also important to note this style of Thomas now uses a different track, and I'm not exactly sure why they changed. Let's dig around under the boiler. Most obvious to me is the difference in motor size. The real Thomas has a much larger motor. The faker has a noticeably smaller motor. Now it's time to power them up. I'll make sure the batteries are at full capacity. The real Thomas has a slower wheel rotation compared to the faker, and this will affect how each one tackles the next round of tests. First up is a general speed test. That's a no-brainer, as the faker has a high speed wheel rotation and quickly catches up to the real Thomas. Next up is the weight challenge. Both trains are pulling carefully disguised cans of popular soda drink. This is a huge weight to pull by these toys. You can clearly hear the mechanical strain in this challenge. This was very interesting. The faker Thomas struggles to catch up to the real Thomas. It's only on the straights it can make any ground in catching the real Thomas. One big difference between the real Thomas and the copy one is the real one can freewheel quite easily, whereas the copy one has its gears engaged. Now for the alpha train test, the head-to-head ram to see who has the grunt to force the opposition off the rails. This was done several times over, and the real Thomas punished the faker in a showdown that I'll never forget. Next up is the hill climb. where I gradually decrease the slope of the tracks until one of the trains accepts the gradient. Surprisingly, the faker did very well in this test and won every challenge. The next test, it's one of my favourites, and it's one where the real Thomas excelled again, once again punishing the faker and putting it back in its box. I'm just glad I'm not one of the trucks in between these two engines. Now for the clincher. It's a drop test. This drop is done from 1 metre, that's around 3 feet. For me, this is the test which defines one toy from the other. One of these toys is going to last, the other one is going to be in pieces. The Thomas faker continually broke into pieces when it was dropped. After all that punishment, everything still works fine. The only damage I can see is a little bit of paint missing from the buffers. Well, I'll be honest here, I'm feeling generous. How about the tuber with the best rated comment, that's thumbs up, on this video will win the faker Thomas and the real Thomas. I'll also throw in a few surprises as well. I'll announce the winner of this alongside the winners of the Lego competition. The best way to win is leave a very clever comment and ask your friends to give it the thumbs up. Well, crikeys, we've had a little lesson in consumer affairs and what to look out for when you're shopping. Now it's time for a little bit of fun. Let's roll the fail reel. Thanks very much for watching. Goodbye.